This week, John Finnemore is taken with spin. Mitch Benn's take on the double dip. Laura Shavin takes on equality.
And John Holmes takes it to new depths. I'm Hugh Dennis.
I'm Steve Punt. Welcome to...
The Now Show!
Thank you very much. And the government showed themselves not very good at preventing panic this week.
We're running out of petrol, you'll be rude. Fill up where you can. Fill up before it's too late or you'll starve. Do you hear me? You will starve and die. But please do not panic.
First, David Cameron annoyed the petrol station owners by telling people to fill up, and then Cabinet Minister Francis Maude made it worse by advising people to store spare petrol in a can in their garage. Firstly, of course, there's the touching notion of senior Tories that everybody has a garage, but secondly, there's a basic health and safety issue here.
Well, that's us safe from the clutches of these socialist troublemakers, isn't it?
Quite right, too. Celebratory cigar?
Yeah, thanks very much.
But then maybe the government weren't thinking straight, since they spent the week reeling at the revelations about their party chairman, Peter Cruddas, offering cosy dinners with the PM in return for cash.
No details have been given about what the actual meals consisted of, but you suspect that everyone knew what would be on the menu.
Oh, the pasties are ready. George doesn't like pasties. He's having stuffed pheasants. Or was it pensioners?
George Osborne, of course, doesn't bother with cooking. He does the same as he does for infrastructure investment. He gets in the Chinese. Now, the government, of course, have claimed that these dinners were nothing to do with influencing policy, so we have to assume that there are people prepared to pay £50,000 just to get a photo with David Cameron.
Yes, which, to be fair, is cheaper than Madame Tussauds. Mr Cruddas told undercover reporters that a donation of £250,000 was the Premier League threshold and merited dinner with the PM. The leagues then go all the way down to the Blue Square Conference, where people can pay 50p to have Michael Gove flick peas at them.
It's a lot of money. Surely if you're paying that amount, you're going to expect a fantastic meal and some rather special treats.
Now, I think you're going to enjoy this, everyone. We don't often bring this out of the cellar.
Ooh, what is it?
It's Nick Clegg. Now, shall I uncork him?
But whatever is down there, it probably didn't cost 40p a unit, the proposed minimum price they want to charge for alcohol.
Yes, this is to stop what they call preloading, where people drink budget-priced supermarket booze before heading off to pubs and bars, although, of course, the best way to deter drunk people isn't a high price. It's a complicated price.
I'll have another cider, please.
Certainly, that's 3 units of 41.98763 pence per unit. So if you'd just like to work that out, I'll serve you.
OK. Three times 41.987. Have you got a piece of paper? It's 100. I'll have an orange juice.
Thought so.
Hang on! Is it on an escalator?
Anyway, in another triumph for the government, the EU said setting a minimum price might be illegal, and also it might encourage people to try and distill their own spirits at home, which they can then store in the garage alongside the petrol. To be fair to David Cameron, he likes eating surrounded by millionaires because it reminds him of school. But some of the guests do look a bit tricky. For a start, one of them was Lord Sainsbury.
Unexpected donation in the bagging area.
And another of the diners at a Tory thank you dinner was Michael Hintzer, who donated 1.3 million and funded a climate change skeptic think tank. Not to be confused with a septic tank. No, one of them is a place that excrement is pumped out of, and the other is a septic tank. Anyway, Peter Cruddas had to fall on his sword, although in fact he chose to shut himself in Francis Maude's garage with a box of matches. And the Prime Minister announced a rigorous internal inquiry into cash for access, which will be chaired by...
Lord Gold.
Yep, in an attempt to dispel the idea that they are a party of the rich. The Tories have appointed Lord Gold to look into their fundraising. You might as well have appointed Lord Rolling in it, or Lord Non-Dom of Tax Relief.
But it's great news, really, if only because the Conservative fundraising organisation can now officially call themselves Cash for Gold.
I don't know why they need an inquiry. I mean, when people hand over thousands of pounds to political parties, who says they want anything in return?
Yes, just because the Conservative Party have received over 300 donations linked to private healthcare companies, totalling 8.3 million over the last 11 years, and 141 members of the House of Lords and 13 Conservative MPs have a financial interest in private healthcare companies, the idea that this could have influenced government healthcare policy is ridiculous and outrageous, although clearly true. But in any case, as Francis Maud so wisely says, if you're worried about it, why not store some spare penicillin in a jerry can in the garage? Thank you very much. Please welcome Mr. Mitch Benn.
The economy goes down and up a bit, then it goes straight back down to the bottom again. The good news is we're out of recession, but the bad news is here comes the depression. We're cutting taxes for the rich and nasty, raising taxes on grannies and pasties. They were told this would happen, they were warned, but there's no talking sense to George Osborne. Here comes the double dipper. Run it on, the double dipper. Hold on tight and make the most of the ride on the economic roller coaster. Connor's been giving them chapter and verse now. You could spell it in recession and it makes it worse now. Still they've gutted welfare and the NHS, so in that respect I guess it's been a success. Here comes the double dipper. Run it on, the double dipper. Better get used to it. Hold on tight. Next up, the piss.
Please welcome John Finnemore.
Sherlock Holmes said that his brain was like an attic, which could only hold so much information, which is why he was happy not to know that the Earth goes round the sun, because he didn't want it cluttering up his brain attic. Now, I am, of course, considerably cleverer than Sherlock Holmes, so I'm happy to tuck a couple of solar system facts in my brain attic. What I don't have room for, though, what I really resent knowing, in fact, is precisely where and when David Cameron last ate a Cornish pasty. But I do know it. That fact has been deemed of enormous national interest, so much so that last night BBC Newsnight made the following correction.
While we've been on air, Downing Street have made clear David Cameron bought his pasty in Liverpool.
Downing Street have done what? They've issued a communique clearing up where precisely the Prime Minister ate a pasty. Does this mean that every problem in the country has been solved now? And that's not all I reluctantly know. I also know that Nick Clegg last ate a pasty a few months ago in Paddington Station. Jeremy Paxman had one last summer in Cornwall. And Ed Davey, the Lib Dem Energy Secretary, eats them all the time. The only circumstances under which it could possibly be worth knowing that Ed Davey, the Lib Dem Energy Secretary, eats pasties all the time is if it were literally true. If Ed Davey, the Lib Dem Energy Secretary, has combined a morbid compulsion with an ingenious conveyor belt-like device strapped to his head, which means that even when in deep sleep he is constantly and forever eating a Cornish pasty, then I'm interested. Of all the questionable things in the budget, the pasty tax is a total irrelevance. It's a little admin-y loophole-closing thing about getting a bakery selling a hot pie to pay the same VAT on it as a chip shop selling a hot pie next door. Even John Mann, the Labour MP whose forensic skill elicited the first damning pasty confession from George Osborne in the first place, doesn't seem to know why he's so cross about it. Last night he explained...
Cold pasties and cold foods aren't vatable. Hot foods are. But pasties, when heated, cool down. And that's the problem.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem with pasties right there. Pasties, when heated, cool down. It's the weirdest thing, because most food obviously stays hot forever. But pasties, when heated, cool down. That's the pasty curse. And not only that, the hotter you make them, the cooler they get. I thought David Cameron would have known better than to try to scramble aboard the pasty wagon. How many votes did he seriously think he was winning when he stood there, behind that podium, looking for all the world like a grown-up adult man, and said...
I love a hot pasty. I think the last one I bought was from West Cornwall Pasty Company. I seem to remember it was at Leeds Station, and the choice was whether to have one of their small ones or one of their large ones, and I've got a feeling I opted for a large one, and very good it was too.
Perhaps the world's dullest episode of Jackanory. But what a man of the people. I mean, I've not been sure about you before, Mr. Cameron. You know, what with the dismantling of the NHS and the tax breaks for billionaires and the fact that anyone can have a go on you for 250 grand. But now you've revealed you eat pasties, and so regularly that you even know about the arcane small ones and large ones system, you can count on my vote for life. No, as I watched that, I couldn't think of anything less likely to attract my vote than the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland feeling the need to inform us that once he went to a train station and he had a pasty and it was yummy. But there, I had underestimated the incredible vote-losing powers of Edward Miliband. Because... before I knew it, what to my wondering eyes should appear but the sight of him, Ed Balls and Rachel Reeves shambling into a Greggs to buy 8 sausage rolls in front of a bank of TV cameras like they do totally normally every single day of their lives. And it was worse. I think it was worse than Cameron, because his was just an aside in a speech. This was a plan. They decided the best way for Labour to react to a harsh and inequitable budget was for Ed Miliband to stand blinking awkwardly in a bakery and pretend to know into which orifice he is meant to insert a sausage roll. And incidentally, the total irrelevance of baked goods to the political debate aside, if I were a party leader whose main problem has been that he's seen as a bit of an overgrown sixth former, I probably wouldn't try to counter that by getting filmed hanging around Greggs sniggering with my mates. So I suppose what I'm asking, and it's a pretty depressing thing to find out that you want, is if all the parties are determined to treat us like idiots, could they at least try to do it competently? At least when Campbell and Mandelson cynically controlled and manipulated us, they did it with style. I mean, it was horrible at the time, sure, but you felt you were in the hands of professionals. It's like nobody wants to be burgled. Being burgled is a horrible thing, but if you have to be burgled, I suppose you would rather have the policeman say...
Yeah, it's a very slick job, this. They picked the lock, went straight for your TV, your laptop, your jewellery box, so probably in and out in 5 minutes.
Rather than...
Yep, slightly baffling cases, sir. They seem to have got in by bashing a hole in the wall next to your front door with their foreheads. Once inside, they went straight for your tomato ketchup, your teaspoons and your daughter's little yellow duck on wheels. Then they threw your TV out the window, covered your laptop in honey and flooded your kitchen trying to climb out through a plug hole in your bath. And one of them left this, sir.
A half-eaten pasty?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right, well, what with budgets, petrol queues and impending rogue state nuclear tests, we've rather overlooked some of the smaller stories in the news. So here are a few that you may have missed.
Yes, Tesco's in Covent Garden, central London, has been shut this week after health inspectors found evidence of mouse infestation, in a bit of a blow to their corporate image.
Here at Tesco, we've got literally hundreds of rodents you won't find anywhere else.
What's even worse is that half the mice are on work experience and infesting for nothing. A spokesman for Sainsbury's said...
I've got to go, I'm due for dinner at Downing Street.
And, of course, it could happen anywhere. Or could it?
Well, of course, at Waitrose, they were infested with naturally grown organic field mice.
Pest controllers have now set traps for them. They're going to lure them in with a 3 for the price of 2 on Cathedral City. And if they can't get rid of them, they're planning to retrain them to give recommendations on the cheese counter.
Elsewhere in the world, News International are in trouble again. This time they may be implicated in the collapse of On Digital 10 years ago, something previously blamed on the contract that it struck with the Football League.
Sky, by contrast, has always done well with football and footballers. Indeed, Sky One has always been taken as an instruction by England's penalty takers.
Plans have been announced to allow cameras into courtrooms in England and Wales, a move that critics say will undermine the dignity of the legal process.
Kevin Martin Reynolds, you have been accused of public disorder, trespass and handling stolen goods. And for these offences, the court finds you... We'll find out after the break.
If I wanted to see well-spoken people doling out long sentences, I'd watch Newsnight Review.
I don't know. Putting courtrooms on telly seems like the thin end of the wedge to me.
Well, that's the verdict over, but the case continues now over on ITV2, where the Court of Appeal's after-party kicks off with Caroline Flack and a young offender.
In America, a man has undergone a complete and successful face transplant after a gun accident.
The operation has interested Nick Clegg, who's hoping to completely change his appearance in time for the next general election. He's been told, however, that he may have a long wait, as surgeons need to find donors for both his faces.
Now, the price of first-class stamps is to rise to 60p, or as the Daily Mail calls it...
stealth tax on Christmas.
Well, it is, really, because from now on, sending Christmas cards will be so expensive that it'll be cheaper to hire a car with a loud hailer on the roof and drive around going,
Happy Christmas to anyone who knows me.
Before a few miles later down the road going,
Bollocks, I've run out of petrol. As you may have heard, the Army is training its drivers to drive petrol tankers during any possible strike. Quite how the Army personnel will master their new skills, we don't know.
Right, you are will shout on my command. You will take your copy of the Daily Star and wedge it between the dashboard and the windscreen. When you has done this, you will eat your Ginster's pasty and you will enjoy it like what the Prime Minister does. Then, and only then, will you wind down your cab window as a young lady passes, wait for it, and shout, Whoa! Hello, darling! All right! Well done, lads. You make me proud.
So, a report out this week from the Office for National Statistics suggests that in the last 3 months of last year, the economy shrank more than expected. So why not make up your own punchline to that and send it to Tiny John Holmes competition and now show London. It's John Holmes.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much indeed. And this week's Week Defence of the Week comes from the lawyers of the notorious hotel maid botherer Dominic Strauss-Kahn, who this week, upon being charged with something called aggravated pimping, which, to be fair, sounds less like a sex crime and more like Tim Westwood angrily kicking a car. He claimed in his defence that although he attended various French sex parties, he didn't know that the women there were prostitutes. Here's what his lawyer said.
At these parties, you are not always dressed, and I challenge you to differentiate between a naked prostitute and any other naked woman.
Wow. That is a legendary defence. That's like David Cameron saying...
Yes, there were overseas donations given to the Conservative Party by billionaire policy-influencing businessmen at dinner, but I challenge you to differentiate between their donations and any other naked woman.
So that's fine then. Anyway, this week we veered from one Cameron deep in it to another as the film director James Cameron, the man behind Aliens and The Terminator and Piranha 2, The Spawning, built himself a submarine and dropped into the Marianas Trench, the deepest point on Earth where the pressure is roughly equivalent to that which the government are under over petrol, pies and bribes. Now, the film director James Cameron's undersea adventure cost $8 million. It was the product of 10 years of work and scientific endeavour and was fraught with danger. The film director James Cameron could have been crushed like an Arab uprising, but it was all worth it, OK? What did you see down there, film director James Cameron, with your film directing eyes? What saw you down in the sunless sea? What did you come back up, climb out of your latter-day lime green Nautilus and tell us that you'd seen?
Nothing.
Nothing. $8 million and 10 years to tell us that the deepest point of the ocean floor is...
a sterile, almost desert-like place.
Wow. It's like Dennis Waterman's conscience. For $8 million, I have to say I wanted a Kraken. Or, at the very least, an old shopping trolley lying down there. And he couldn't even find Nemo. All that technology, all you can see on the screen is a flat and interesting blue featureless nothing. You might as well watch Avatar. Yet it did throw up some anomalies, OK? Ahead of his trip down to Challenger Deep, the film director James Cameron said that the team were...
hoping to answer questions and solve scientific conundrums.
Conundrums, yeah, such as how can animals survive at these extreme depths? What can we learn from this unparalleled look into the Earth's mantle? And the most perplexing mystery of all, how come James Cameron was tweeting from the bottom of the Marianas Trench, yet I can't even get a decent broadband signal in Canterbury? The film director James Cameron's tweet from the ocean floor went...
can't wait to share what I'm seeing with you.
Which was?
Nothing.
Great. Now, the film director James Cameron is obsessed with water, of course. He made The Abyss, and let's not forget Piranha 2, The Spawning. And, of course, Titanic, which is re-released this week in 3D. To be fair, we are coming up on the 100th anniversary of the sinking, though, and to celebrate, the BBC seem to have around 20,000 documentaries and programmes on to tell us all about it. Now, the one with the best title is on this weekend, OK? It's called Titanic with Len Goodman. Titanic with Len Goodman. They might as well have called it Dancing on Iceberg, for heaven's sake. But it turns out that Len Goodman had a direct, concrete link to the Titanic, right? Everyone knows that the Titanic was built in Belfast between 1909 and 1912. But what you may not know is that by an amazing coincidence, future Strictly Come Dancing judge, then only 10 years old and just a short 50 years and 2,280 miles away from where it sank, once saw a boat. Now, to be fair, right, he was working on the boat because, and this is brilliant, it appears that Len Goodman, before he was a dancer, once worked as a welder. And that means that the story of Len Goodman is like the plot of Flashdance come to magical, wonderful life. What a feeling that is. Len Goodman used to be a welder in Harland and Wolff's East End shipyard. Half a century earlier in Belfast, Harland and Wolff built the Titanic. And I bet you anything that when the producers of this particular documentary found out that little fact on Wikipedia, they high-fived and took the rest of the day off. Seriously, what's next? To look at 9/11 with Dastardly and Muttley on the grounds that they once flew a plane?
Yeah, there are terrorists on board. Quick, Muttley, do something.
Thank you very much.
Now, many songs have been inspired by books, Wuthering Heights, Bright Eyes, and, of course, the theme from Paddington. But only one person has been inspired by a work from the popular psychology section. And since this week marks the 20th anniversary of its publication, here is that person. And it is Laura Shavin.
Wrote men are from Mars, women are from Venus. A book all about the differences between us. And he didn't say it's just cause men have a Y chromosome. It's Radio 4, not sure we can say penis. 20 years on, a lot of what he wrote is still considered worthless. Same-sex relationships are doomed to go bad. The best advice to give a growing girl or a lad is that all men are stupid and all women are mad. I'm paraphrasing slightly. Everywhere men refuse to ask directions, all those cliches still exist. It applies to everyone, even the Queen says to Prince Philip, "Does one's bum look big in this?" Yes, all men are stupid, all women are mad, though occasionally there are exceptions to be had. Those MPs who voted for the NHS bill, man or woman doesn't matter, they're both mad and stupid as well.
Now, where would this show be without surveys? And this week, a survey claimed that the use of Cockney rhyming slang is dying out. So clearly we'd like to help ensure its survival. So we've asked our audience here to invent some new rhyming slang and tell us what it means.
John Holmes, garden gnomes.
Mitt Romney, presidential nominee.
Sensible shoes, BBC News.
Now, here's from someone who's not possibly familiar with slang. Apples and pears, fruit.
This is great. It's a rule of three. It goes Harry Potter, squatter, Hermione Granger, stranger, Voldemort, Rupert Murdoch.
So, thank you very much for those. The Cockney rhyming slang clearly has a healthy future. Thank you for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye. That was the Now Show starring Steve Punt and Hugh Dennis with Mitch, Benn, Laura Shavin, John Holmes and John Finnemore. It was written by the cast with additional material from John Hunter, Juliet Myers, Richard Howe and Benjamin Partridge. It was developed with Bill Dare and the producer was Katie Terrell.